Hello! Welcome! We actually have a fair amount of live viewers already, which is, I don't know what it's a sign of, but it's a sign of something. Sign of the times. Sign of how many people are stuck in their house. It's been a whole, 2 weeks since we did the live stream, and I think 2 weeks in this world right now is equivalent to a couple years worth of news and changes in the world because everything's been happening. If the live viewers are on desktop right now, I'd love to know where you're at in the world. And I know if you're on iPad or iPhone, you can't chat, but if you can see the chat, and if you are near a desktop or somewhere where you can see the chat, or if you could get there, then you can actually participate in the chat. We have an unreasonable amount of questions today, but I did get a donut delivered. Still can't leave the house, but one was brought to me, and it's a creme brulee vegan donut. So I figured it was important to have the donut in the context of the fact that we are going to talk about lots of depressing stuff, but also a fair amount of good stuff. I think the government really did step it up in the US this week, and also the UK. Was that only this week that the UK passed their bill? Wow. Yeah, Olympia, Washington. Ashley's in Olympia. Art of the Budget. Didn't say where they're at, but they're here too. Sean is in Seattle and wanted to see what donuts I have. I like that that's the important part. Well, we have this creme brulee donut, so it's really definitely coming. Yeah, man, just so you know, the font is very tiny, so if I have to keep leaning in, that's because I'm having trouble reading it. Annie's in California. What a week it has been, right? It's been both that and also I feel like no time has passed at all, because I think it feels like everything has only happened in the past 24 hours, but also it's been happening for years. I don't know. Philly in here. Oh, it's Cannibal Socks. Oh, you don't have to out yourself with your real name if you don't want. Yeah, I always get nervous about people from the forums because I tend to know a lot of real names, but I know a lot of people want to keep it anonymous. Approaching the Crust is here again. I remember that name because it sounds very epic and Jane Eyre-ish. Hi from Virginia. That's awesome. All right. Well, welcome to whatever this is. I'm very I feel like we should chat about something that isn't the stimulus bill, because I can probably fill up the rest of this live stream just describing what happened this week, because it was everything this week was unprecedented. And I'm not going to talk about the public health stuff because that's really depressing. But what I am going to talk about is the steps that the US government, and if people are interested, the UK government is taking to try to fix that. Those were the two big bills that were passed this week. As far as, they don't call them bills in the UK, but those were the two big things that were passed this week. And the US one is, it's getting overused as a word, but it is unprecedented. We also had the unemployment numbers, so yeah, which were depressing and unprecedented. Wow. Yes, sure, I'll tell you about my outfit. I almost wore a dinosaur onesie because I felt like when talking about bond markets, people might actually prefer to see me dressed as a dinosaur, but there's really big lights in here, and I didn't really want to end up melting in a fuzzy dinosaur onesie. Also, it's not great for sitting because it has a large tail. I'm actually not sure if it's a dinosaur or a dragon or what it is. It's pink and fuzzy, so I think it already extends beyond the bounds. But yes, I am wearing a jumpsuit. I still went for a onesie. It's just not a dinosaur onesie. The most fun fact... Oh no, I'm going to put my feet on the internet. This is a bad idea. The most fun fact is that these leggings are large enough that I can fit my whole body into each side of the legs. And I had to hem them because I'm 1.5 meters tall, so I have to hem all pants, and I hemmed them, and I took this much fabric off of each leg. Like, I could have made myself a acceptable in public skirt from each leg just from the amount that I had to hem off. I don't know, like I'm short, but I'm not, like, these were clearly made for someone like that's like 5'10" or 6 feet tall. So yeah, they're also very wide leg. The dino onesie would have been cute. It is true. It is very cute. I could possibly go grab it at some point, but it's very warm, especially if I'm wearing this underneath it. Folks, there's just so much happening in the world. Oh, let me make sure I sent this out on Patreon. It did. It went live. Well, that's what's going on. What's the best thing that happened in anybody that's on the chat's week? Like, what is one good thing? Even if it was just like you followed Triscuitgate on Twitter, which I'm not going to do justice, so you have to look it up yourself, but, or like you cleaned your house because you were bored. By the way, I have Earl Grey tea. It's instead of coffee today, and it's really good. I felt like it went better with the coffee, or better than coffee with the creme brulee donut, although I don't really know because I have not tried it yet. And I also am concerned about our coffee stash. Amazing hike in the woods with no one around. I mean, that's great. Ashley got keys to your apartment today. Oh, yay. That's really exciting. I know you were like anxiously awaiting being able to move, and now you get to try to get furniture at a time when no one is buying anything. And buying used is maybe more skeptically good. But let's stay positive. You got your apartment. Claire had a good mental health week, and the one job I have left is going well, knock on wood. That's the one job you have left. Okay. Speaking of jobs, I guess let's start answering questions that people have about the unemployment bill. So, first off, I don't think we have any UK people. Nobody said they're in the UK. So I won't dive too much into that. But if people have any questions about how it is differing in the UK, I'll answer that. But I think probably most people are concerned about the US. So, do we have questions on unemployment? Oh, master behind the curtain. So the first thing to know is that there is a huge fiscal stimulus bill that passed this week. It's over $2 trillion, which is very important because essentially we have to shut down the economy in order to slow the spread of disease. And if you've been following the public health situation with COVID-19, you know that this week it got extremely bad in the US. The US ended up leading the world in cases, outstripping both Italy and China, where we first saw cases crop up in China. And so the US got serious this week. In addition, we got the unemployment numbers on Thursday, and those unemployment numbers are people in the week of March 14th, so not even last week, but the week before that. Those are first-time filers, so not people that are renewing their unemployment benefits because it goes week to week, but people that are first-time filers as unemployment claims. And that number was staggering. I wish I had kept a picture of it, but the front page of the New York Times visualized it really well. And let's imagine the front page of like a broadsheet newspaper, and they had all of the previous unemployment claims for the past 8 years at the bottom. And then they put new claims for that week on the side, and it went from the top to the bottom of the broadsheet. There were 3.2 or 3.3, depending on how you measure it, new first-time filers of unemployment claims for the week of March 14th in the United States. So, whew. But the good/bad news is that a lot more people get to file for unemployment than has ever been true before. So the way unemployment has usually worked, this is an excellent lead-in question. I do not know how to read their username. I think it's like Nicole Crafts, but asked, how would the unemployment affect creatives who make income from workshops that are not now canceled? So there are two ways where if you are self-employed or let's just start with self-employed. We'll get to kind of gig workers later, but generally when I say self-employed, kind of consider 1099 gig workers to be roughly in the same camp. The big thing that this did, in addition to greatly improving unemployment benefits, is vastly widen who qualifies for them. And usually when you are self-employed, you don't actually pay into the unemployment system, so you're not eligible for unemployment benefits. It's not even one of those things where it's like, oh, just woe is me, I'm self-employed, so I don't have access to things. This is actually one of those cases where unemployment is funded by unemployment insurance, which is part of what companies pay as part of their payroll, and you don't pay into that as a self-employed person. However, we live in unprecedented times, and so one of the things that they did was that they made it so that now anybody who is unemployed that can link how they lost income to COVID-19, and they are, trust me, very overwhelmed in unemployment offices, so I don't think you need extensive documentation. I think very obviously, if you have events and they were canceled, if you're an event producer and your conferences were canceled, if you're someone that makes a living as a hairdresser, a self-employed masseuse, an acupuncturist, anything where you are self-employed and that kind of business was shut down. So either events were canceled because of gathering restrictions or shelter-in-place orders. If your state has shut down and asked, like in my state, we actually had an extensive list of all the businesses that need to be closed. If your state, like California, shut down all non-essential businesses. So if you are self-employed and your business has to cease working, so this does not apply. For example, if you are a graphic designer that can work from home and your usual gigs are continuing. So you can't just file for unemployment right now because you are specifically stressed. However, that all changes if you get diagnosed for COVID-19. So if you are self-employed and you lost income from workshops, for example, like I make about half of my income from my business for speaking gigs. All of my speaking gigs for the foreseeable next several months have been canceled. I had 5 events canceled in the space of 2 weeks, all in one day. I have other income, but if that was my main income for the business, I could file for self-employment. So the same process would happen now for unemployed people now that are self-employed as well as employed through a traditional business. There's also several other things that they changed. You can file for unemployment if you work for a business that is considered an essential business, but you are ordered by a medical professional to self-quarantine, or if you are ordered by a medical professional that it isn't safe for you to go to work because you're immunosuppressed. So for example, you work at a Starbucks in a hospital and it's still open right now, and you work a traditional W-2 job, but your healthcare professional says, no, you are immunosuppressed, it isn't safe for you to go to that job, then you would also be able to file for unemployment, regardless of whether or not you were laid off, furloughed, which implies temporary, or if you quit because of medical concerns. It does not apply to you if you quit simply because you were scared of going to work, but they're being very lenient about like getting notes from medical professionals, and most medical professionals are willing to extend those notes if you fall into someone with a high risk category. So if you have a history of asthma, if you're immunosuppressed, if you've had an autoimmune disorder, any of those things. So essentially now you would qualify for unemployment. Normally, unemployment only pays between 45 and 60% of whatever you were earning per week before. So the average worker in the US, let's say earns, I think it's about $800 a week. But let's say 1,000 just to make it round. So normally you would get, it depends slightly on the state because this is administered by the states, but around $450. So it's based on whatever your previous income is set at. So it's a percentage of your previous quarters. So you do have to have good enough records as a self-employed person to prove what you have earned on previous quarters. It's not like a direct reimbursement to you saying like, hey, well, you were going to earn $1,000 from this gig, so here's $1,000 there. It's based on your previous quarters of earning. That being said, the big thing that they did is they made unemployment essentially through July 31st. They added 13 weeks to everyone. So even if you've previously exhausted your unemployment benefits, on average, they're about 26 weeks. Most states, it's 26 weeks. They added 13 weeks to everyone. So if you've just timed out of unemployment for some reason, you can file anew and get another 13 weeks. And those 13 weeks, regardless of what camp you're in, you will get an extra 6. Oh, are we off now? So, are you back?
Yeah.
Whatever benefit amount that you have. Most states also have a maximum benefit. So if you're really well paid, you made good money as a self-employed person, and your work dried up for COVID-related reasons, then you would qualify for that extra $600 a week on top of the minimum payment. The way that they're calculating payments for self-employed people is a little complicated, and there's a formula for it. So yeah. Are folks back and understanding what's going on? Did that kind of answer it? It was a little exhaustive. I'm sorry. Is it time to eat a donut? Then we can talk about how most people are getting $1,200 for no reason. I mean, there's a reason for it, but... Good, okay. People are still here. Do people want me to eat the donut now, or should we wait? Should we talk about the $1,200 that we are going to earn? All right. Actually, I would be really curious if people have any more questions about unemployment, and I'm going to vamp by starting to eat this donut. Until then, I have to make sure we get a good view of it on the camera. Oh, we get a special donut light. Ooh. Okay, it's a creme brulee donut. All right. Okay, this is good. Oh. It's got like cream in the middle too. I've never really had creme brulee before. I just know that that's what, Amelie cracks in the movie Amelie, right? It has like a little shell on the top. But this is vegan, so I think that's like made of egg, right? It's pretty good. It's very crusty. Like it has a big crust on the top. I don't know what the middle is. Does anybody know what the middle of creme brulee is? It's like filled in the middle. Oh my God. Okay. People have actual financial questions. Are they blanket waiving waiting periods for unemployment benefits, or is that just Washington State? So very few states actually do have waiting periods for unemployment benefits. They are not. So if Washington is waiving it, it's because it's a state rule. As far as I can tell, they are not. They didn't do anything in the federal bill. What I will also say about the federal bill is, while I have read a lot about this, the actual bill is so big that no one has read all of it. And it's possible we will be talking about it for the rest of our lives. Like, that is how much is in there. So, I do not think they waive waiting periods as a matter of federal policy, but a lot of states don't have any waiting periods for unemployment. So, yeah. It's not like, so in the UK, they have the 5-week waiting period, but you can like request in advance for universal credit, which is their thing there. So Claire says Pennsylvania also says they're waiting the waiving period, which is normally 1 week. Okay, so it's possible that states are choosing to do it one by one. Normally, creme brulee is made of eggs, but vegan is made of... I didn't even know there was vegan ones, but apparently it's made of coconut cream. Okay, cool. Oh, because you use fire, right, on it? I don't know. I can tell you about unemployment benefits, but I can't tell you how to make creme brulee. All right. We're all going to take a deep breath because I have not even in any way covered all the people that unemployment covers yet. So, it also covers you if you cannot go to work anymore because the school has been canceled for your kid and childcare has been canceled and you need to take care of your kid. So, you can then also claim unemployment. You can claim unemployment previously if you were a part-time worker who just lost one of their jobs but still had some income. You would not be able to claim unemployment. That is not true anymore. You can claim part-time unemployment. If you are someone who is a creative who doesn't have all of the quarters previously of earnings, because normally it's based on the 4 previous quarters. So right now it would be based on the 4 quarters of 2019 unemployment benefits. If you don't have all your previous quarters and you are self-employed, or if you're like a recent graduate that doesn't have enough quarters that you would normally qualify for unemployment, that has also been waived. If you are someone whose hours have been significantly reduced, you also qualify for unemployment. So if there are 2 minimum wage workers in a state that has the federal minimum wage, which is $7.25 an hour, and they both lose their jobs, and they have 1 kid, let's say, next month they're getting over $6,000 just in unemployment benefits because they're each getting that extra $600 a week, the minimum unemployment benefit. And then if they have a kid, they're also going to qualify for this extra $1,200 that they're getting.
Got some more questions?
Yes. Okay. So it's burnt sugar. That's what makes the crust. Okay. Well, that's why there's a hard crust on this thing. This is not my favorite, but sugar as just a flavor is not my favorite flavor. So, but the texture is really good. Okay. North Carolina is also waiving the 1 week waiting period. So it seems like all over the camp, people are getting their waiting periods waived. So, people that you might not realize can apply for unemployment benefits right now include musicians that have had canceled gigs, business owners that are sole proprietorships, or LLCs would be able to then file unemployment claims for the lost income if their business has been closed. Oh, I thought the kid just added a half share. So the kid doesn't add anything to the unemployment benefits, Taylor, but the kid would add $500 to the extra $1,200 that everybody is getting if you're making minimum wage. So let's talk about the $1,200, the weird magical number that we've decided everybody's getting. So the vast majority of adults are going to get this. And if you don't get it, it means you make too much money. So Danielle asked, are there salary caps for the stimulus? There are not salary caps, so to speak, but there is a adjusted gross income max. So if your adjusted gross income for the year of 2019 is greater than $99,000. Remember, adjusted gross income is after you deduct student loan interest and also after you deduct, under the new plan, after you deduct traditional IRAs or traditional 401ks. If you are a business owner, that also comes after you deduct business expenses. So if your adjusted gross income, not your modified adjusted gross income, which is slightly different, is less than $99,000 a year, as a person, or less than, I believe, how much is it for 2 people? It is, if you are filing head of household, less than $112,500. And I believe it's $150,000 for a married couple. Then you would those are the points at which it does phase out, and then you won't get $1,200. However, if you make more than $75,000 as an individual, it will start going down from that $1,200. So that $1,200 will deduct for each $1,000 above $75,000 until it completely disappears at $99,000. So, so much. And then if you have kids, you will get $500. And this is based on your 2019 income. However, if you have not yet filed for 2019 taxes, which is not due until July 15th now, then it will be based on your 2018 taxes. If you are in the situation where you would not qualify in 2018, but you would in 2019, then it makes the most sense for you to file now, or it makes the most sense for you to not file. If you're in the opposite situation where in 2019 you qualified, but not in 2018, then you should file because you'll do that based on there. There is one exception to this. So we had a bunch of people that asked questions about, am I going to have to pay this back? Because we're Americans and we generally assume if the government does anything, will you have to pay it back? Technically what this is, the answer is probably not, but maybe. So if you are in the, once again, very lucky situation where this year your adjusted gross income is over $99,000, but you still got it. So let's say last year you were making $50,000. They give you $12,000 or $1,200 next month. And then when you file your taxes in 2020, you go, oh, crap. Actually, I made more than $99,000 in adjusted gross income. And you can't lower that adjusted gross income by like contributing to retirement or whatever, then you would in fact have to pay it back at tax time. Because technically what they are doing is giving us an advance on a tax credit for the 2020 year. How are they giving it? Taylor, excellent question. So the way they are giving it to you is hopefully via ACH. If you are someone who has had ACH, which is the electronic transfer from the IRS, in the past, then they say in the next 3 weeks, you will just get it put into your account. They are also going to send you a letter in the mail saying what account they dropped it into. However, if you don't have ACH information updated with the IRS, the current recommendation is that you go file a tax return, even if it's just an amended tax return with the same numbers, and put ACH information in it, because the IRS is not going to get those checks out until we are dead. I don't know if you heard, but the IRS is really stressed out right now. Yes. Here's the other things to know about this generally is that this is, if you are someone that is worried because you owe money to the government and you're getting garnishments right now, that will not affect this money. So this money is not going to be reduced by garnishments for student loan payments. It's not going to be your IRS, any money that you owe the IRS. Actually, guess what? If you owe money to the IRS, they've suspended anybody having to pay it back for the foreseeable future right now. You can still make payments if you want, but they are not worrying about that at the moment, and you are not going to get in trouble. And this $1,200 is not taxable income for this year. So because it is a tax credit, it's actually similar to like the earned income tax credit, which is for low income workers, in that it is a bonus credit, and it is not count as part of your taxable income. It's just money the government gives to you. So bit of a delayed question. So if you file for loss of a part-time job, you still get $600 a week, i.e. more than you would normally make at that job. Yes, Claire, that is what's nuts about the unemployment thing. Whatever, that was nuts used in a positive way, so I'm not gonna chide myself for it. But no, that's the thing. This $600 a week, honestly, if you are someone who might make sense to file for unemployment, this extra $600 a week is going to run through July 31st, and there is no reason at this moment not to file. I know a lot of people were concerned about not filing because you have a maximum amount of unemployment that you can use, because normally it's capped at 26 weeks, and like that's within a certain time period. So if some people are worried like, well, what if I lose my job later? I don't want to take this now for a loss of income now. But if you have part-time job, reduced hours, it is to your advantage to file for unemployment because you get that extra $600 a week. Yeah. Claire said, holy shit. Yes, it is a really big deal. So that is how the IRS money is going to show up. The $1,200 is ACH or a check sometime before we die. And the unemployment right now is, I mean, this is the largest expansion of unemployment that has ever happened in history. So, yes, there's a lot of big things that are happening. And I think there's a lot of people that are like, oh, the big reason that this was a holdup, if you were following the news, you probably saw that we have some very angry computers over there. That's why you're hearing random noises. So the reason that this, one of the many reasons that this kept stalling out was at the 11th hour where they were almost going to pass this on Wednesday night. Republicans were concerned that some Republicans were concerned that this wouldn't incentivize people to work because there's a strong possibility that you could be making a lot of money on unemployment claims even if you were minimum wage, if two wage earners lost their income in a household. Except that that's the point. We want people to make enough on unemployment right now that they are not going out looking for work because one, there ain't no jobs to be had. And there are some jobs, we'll get to how those are going to get filled. And then two, the other thing is that like we need the economy to stall. So they are trying to they're trying to cover the fact that this is truly out of control, unprecedented. And so this is the whole point of this right now is to make it so that people don't go look for jobs. So the unemployment, however, will not apply to you if you have enough paid sick time. So it works if you you can file for this claim if you are not getting paid sick leave. Technically, they've extended most paid sick leave to workers now. There's now some form of paid sick leave based on the first bill that they passed in early March, which, like, I guess it took a global pandemic for American politicians to realize we need paid sick leave. Cool. But the thing about this is that, so for example, if you have a boss that is extending you unlimited paid sick leave and you have COVID, you cannot file for unemployment because they're expecting you to just keep doing this. The big thing here is that for the average median worker, this extra $600 a week will make up the gap between unemployment being lower than what they earned before and being equal to what they were earning before. And yes, for really low income workers that frankly get paid too little, then yes, they will be making more on unemployment right now. I mean, it's a huge difference. So, yeah, there's a lot to unpack here. There is another way, if you are self-employed, that you can continue to pay yourself using this bill that has nothing to do with unemployment. So, they are giving out payroll loans for small businesses. So, if you operate a small business or in the administration of a small business, which the technical definition is under 500 employees, then you are eligible for small business administration loans. And that's part of this package too. Like there's so much stuff in here. Like they gave money to the USDA for a specific thing that benefits potato farmers. I mean, there's so much stuff in here. But the SBA loans are really fascinating because the SBA loans are essentially a loan that converts to a grant if you keep employees on payroll. And the loan it's at a pretty low rate because they've dropped interest rates to almost nothing. The Fed rate is now 0%, and US bonds are trading at 0.6% or something like that. No, 0.06%. It's very low. Which is, I can get into that if you have questions about it. But the SBA loans, for once, you now can qualify if you are a sole proprietor to pay you can qualify for a loan that lets you pay utilities, mortgage or rent, and payroll. and you can put yourself on payroll. Normally, you could only put yourself on payroll as a self-employed person if you had like an S corp, but you can put yourself on payroll even as a sole proprietor or LLC. And as long as you keep yourself on payroll and keep paying payroll, or if you have multiple other employees, if you keep paying them, if you decide to take out this loan, they will then convert it to a grant for you at the end of the year. So these SBA loans are pretty phenomenal, and they work for both nonprofits as well as working for businesses. The nonprofits technically have a lower interest rate on them. It's 2.75 and 3.25%. So anyway, it's if businesses have already laid off employees right now, they can apply for the loan and they will not get penalized for laying off employees. And if they hire them back, they actually will get a credit. So they actually set it up pretty well. The other thing they're allowing businesses to do, if you don't want to take out an SBA loan, is they're allowing you to delay your payroll taxes all year. So whatever you would normally pay in payroll taxes in 2020, you can pay in 2 installments, the first half in 2021 and the second half in 2022. So that's the big like flexibility that they're giving right now to businesses. So that's pretty cool. This is one of those things that could really phenomenally help out small retail businesses that have closed, any non-essential businesses that have had to close that have retail spaces, but also people like hairdressers who usually have a good business and still need to be paying rent on their physical space, but are not allowed to operate their business right now. So yeah, it's, pretty freaking cool. There's a lot of things in this bill. It's one of those things. It's not necessarily a thing we'd want all the time. Like, as great as it is, there's a lot of reasons why this isn't necessarily how we would want to structure things all of the time. I'm not saying we shouldn't have paid sick leave. I'm not saying you should be ineligible if you're a gig worker for businesses for various kinds of employment. That being said, there's a lot of stuff rolled into this that the goal of it is to make sure that the economy really can slow down this year. And this is good, but it's just sugar. Oh, yeah. Here, so let me know what your questions are. I also sped through that, so feel free to ask me any questions if you want. Also, why do we have a downvote? Is it because people don't want me to talk about unemployment? Okay. AWS asked, should I be reconsidering my financial goals in the midst of a pandemic and recession? Very possibly. I think one of the big things that people have had, like, so I've gotten numerous texts to the effect of, should I take money out of my retirement? And the answer is probably not. It's the same as in almost all circumstances. No, you should probably not be taking money out of your retirement. Right now is actually probably one of the worst times to be taking money out of your retirement, simply because the market has dropped so much. We had a little bit of a gain towards the end of the week once the bill passed, but the stimulus bill passed. That being said, the market's at a low. One of the things that was actually included in the fiscal stimulus bill is the fact that this year you are not required to take required minimum distributions. Usually you're required to take required minimum distributions once you hit retirement age from certain kinds of accounts, but you are not required to do that this year because they don't want you to have to lose money and pull them out. That being said, if you need to take money out of your retirement account, which once again, please don't do, but if you need to take money out of your retirement account, your IRA, for example, you are not going to be hit with the normal 10% penalty that you get for taking money out early before retirement age out of your IRA. And you can take up to $100,000 out of it as long as it is for COVID-related reasons. So it could be to pay your mortgage, pay bills, after you got diagnosed with COVID, something like that. You would actually be able to spend it. That being said, please just leave it in the market. The market is down right now, and one of the biggest pieces of advice I can give to you is completely ignore whatever is happening with your retirement account right now. Just don't even log in. If you still have income and you have auto debits set, you could, if you want to preserve the cash that you have right now, you could stop your auto contributions. And that would be the only adjustment I would say to make. But what I will say is that stocks are completely on sale right now. So one of the great things about investing right now is that you are buying more shares. So a great example is like, let's say Apple is $100 a share. I actually think it's a lot more than that. I don't track individual stocks like I don't recommend people do. But let's say Apple is $100 a share and the market tanked and it went down to $50 a share. Well, if you're putting $100 a month into your retirement and that is getting invested entirely in Apple stocks, which is a very bad retirement plan, but let's continue on with this journey. Then instead of buying just one share in Apple stocks, you've now bought 2 shares. So later, when the economy completely does better, then one of the things you're going to have, let's say Apple stocks go up to $200 a share in 3 years, when this is that terrible year 2020 and we've all moved on. Now you have $400 worth of Apple stock instead of just $200 like you would have if you had bought it at the top of the market. Buy low, sell high. And that's true with the market as a whole. So if you're doing what I do with my portfolio, which is that I buy index funds, which are indexed to the entirety, which it's like pulling the index out of a book where you get a tiny piece of everything in the stock market. So I invest in index funds, which means right now I'm getting everything in the market pretty much at its lowest place that has been in a long time. So I'm just buying more shares right now. LM says, I work for a religious organization and we're normally not eligible to file for unemployment. Is there a chance that there would be an exception to this rule with the stimulus? I have no idea how it works. Oh, yes, 100%. You're almost guaranteed to be able to file for unemployment. If you normally can't file for unemployment, sometimes when you work for religious, there's 2 cases. If you are someone that's a member of the clergy, sometimes you can't file because you follow into this separate category. Or you can't file because essentially quite often they won't pay into Social Security because they get some weird exemption that I don't really understand. And it sucks for their employees. But the awesome part about this is that all the old rules are suspended. So anything that would be normal, if you have been laid off from your religious organization or your hours have been cut, for example, no one can go to temple anymore because they've banned all religious gatherings. Or if you're a member of the clergy, who usually you're technically self-employed if you're a member of the clergy, depends on how you structure it. And the way that you make money on top of your job is that you get, a living from whatever church you're employed by, and then you also do weddings and funerals and stuff like that, and you take a fee from it. Obviously, weddings and funerals are pretty much being canceled right now, so as a member of the clergy or as a member of a worker, you can now file for unemployment. Remember, all of the laws normally around unemployment have pretty much been suspended. Pretty much the only people that are not going to be eligible for it are people that are stay-at-home parents that don't have any income last year and that do have another wage earner. However, if you are a stay-at-home parent and you were making money up until sometime after January 31st of this year, then you would be able to file unemployment claims on that if you can link the unemployment to COVID. The other way that you could do it, which would be very sad, but is if the primary wage earner in your household dies due to COVID, then you can file unemployment claims for them, even if they're dead. It's not fraud. It's explicitly written out in the bill. Normally filing unemployment claims for a dead person would be fraud, but in this particular case, that is not true. They have to die from COVID, though. So for that to be true, otherwise, it's Social Security and all that. Yeah, this is the best info I gotten. The thing with the unemployment stuff that I would say is everything in this bill came so fast, it changed so much, it's all over the map. But the general rule is you probably qualify if you had income. I forgot to say the other people that might not qualify are new students entering the workforce who have no previous quarters of earning that are just now starting to look for a job. However, if you had been offered a job and then that job offer got canceled or they delayed you, because of COVID-19, then you can claim even if you don't have quarters last year. So, and I keep saying quarters because that's what they base unemployment on usually. And you'll get that extra $600 a week. So even if you're a part-time worker or you make minimum wage and the only amount you would get would be the minimum claim amount, you are still going to get an extra $600 a week on top of that, which, I mean, that makes a huge difference to most people. That's, what is that? 4.3 times 600. So that's $2,800 a month, which is like about as much as I make. So it's a really big deal. Any other questions people have about unemployment or the $1,200 or small business stuff? I know Taylor asked about best ways to support small businesses, and I'm frankly looking for advice on this too. We're going to do an episode on whether or not gift certificates are worth buying. I know because I'm in this very fortunate position where my income is relatively stable, mainly because I have 3 jobs. I am going to probably, unless anything changes by the time my $1,200 shows up, I am probably going to spend it on, I decided half is going to go to charitable donations. There was a change to charitable donations too. So much stuff. So previously, only if you itemized your taxes would charitable donations make sense. And now this year, if you are stable and like me and you want to make charitable donations to a public charity, so it can't be to a private foundation or donor advised fund, like your own family foundation, but if you do it to a public charity, then you up to $300 is totally tax deductible next year. And if you are someone with an extremely high net worth, 1, go talk to your tax person, but 2, there's a bunch of different ways. I think you can completely deduct 100% of whatever your charitable donations are off of this year's AGI. So it can make a huge amount of sense for you if you want to lower your AGI. And I don't know, if you've got someone working tax magic for you, you may even be able to lower your AGI enough where you'll get $1,200 next year. I mean, that would be magic, but, okay, Ashley says, local businesses, it's so hard. Contacting them individually and ask what would help is the best method, but they themselves may not know if it would help. I think that's one of the really hard parts. So buying gift certificates is one of the things that I'm planning on doing. I'm really, in Portland, we're very lucky that we have a lot of really great indie movie theaters, which is not a thing that a lot of other places still have. And I'm really concerned about the indie movie theaters that are not. We have one in our neighborhood that's a nonprofit, and they have a really good membership program that I'm sure they're going to see it through because they're 501c3 and they can get grants. I am concerned about the small businesses that play $4 movies that are in these gorgeous historic theaters. And I think part of what makes my city special, and so one of the things I'm planning on doing is getting gift certificates, which does technically put a liability on their books, but I think most of them are better off for the cash now. I do think they themselves not really knowing what will actually help is a big thing. Kat says, speaking of new students entering the workforce, how dramatically do you think the financial impacts the next couple months will affect a new grad starting a job on June 8th? I feel like it's a fool's errand to predict anything further than 2 days out right now. And I feel like, it's always a fool's errand to predict economics. I think it really depends on industry. So if someone is starting a job on June 8th and it's in an essential industry, I think they're probably going to be fine. One of the big things that's happening right now, a lot of the essential businesses that are being slammed. So that includes warehousing, certain kinds of medical things, and obviously medical care, but then there's also medical manufacturing and support, and folks working at old folks' homes. And then the big one here is service workers in essential services. So rather than restaurants, which aren't necessarily considered that, but grocery stores, and also shipping and receiving. So right now, we're not positive USPS is going to last. It's cool. The government will bail them out. That's the Postal Service, if there's anybody outside the U.S. wondering what USPS is. The government will bail them out. They're important. But shipping and receiving, FedEx and UPS, those are the industries where they're still hiring right now. And the big thing is that, like, they, in addition to needing to onboard a bunch of new people, they are slammed right now. And they also need to onboard people to follow all these new sanitation practices and stuff like that. And so, yeah, that's one of the things right now where I think that a lot of people's training is going to be shortened in new jobs, and also is suddenly going to involve all of this, like, stuff about sanitation and best practices. I also think there's quite a few people, I already know some people that have started new jobs where they've been remote. We had someone start at my company, which is like a very remote friendly workplace, but usually we like meet the people when they start at some point within the first week, because we're all in the office at least once a week. But we were like, hi, welcome on Slack. Here's some cat emojis. So Approaching the Crest says, gotta go try to play card games virtually. This has been an informative chat. Thanks. It's not as fun as normal, but hopefully informative. Do people want to hear about random things that were in the fiscal stimulus bill? There's a specific tax credit for alcohol distilleries that are producing alcohol for hand sanitizers. That's a fun one. They enacted something that hasn't been used since the Great Depression to support a program that the USDA has for farmers. And they also gave money to the USDA for a specific thing that benefits rural hospitals, which I am not positive why the FDA is in charge of any rural hospitals, but they also gave the money for that. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on. But yeah, those are pretty much the big ones. All right, should I finish this donut and then... How long have we been on for? I've been talking forever. Have we been on for an hour? Wow, it's just been me talking all the time. Yeah, everything's going to be very... Oh, Amanda says it's going to make some interesting CPAing next year. Yeah. I'm sorry, Amanda. I think your job is going to be very hard next year. You don't do a lot of individual tax returns, though, if I recall correctly. But I think it's going to be nuts for everyone. I've seen the calculations that they did specifically about how that you can get this like payroll tax repaid. And those calculations are not easy. It's sort of like miserably dealing with being like absolutely awful weirdness. Okay. Oh, hey, our Australian made it. Look at that. I'm very proud of you for making it here because it's like 6 a.m. in Western Australia. Amanda says no, but we have 6 new municipal audit clients this year. Oh yeah, I'm sorry. That's going to be awful. I will say, one of my jobs is doing maps for transit agencies, and never, ever have we had an entire week of every single transit agency in the world that we represent changing their schedule. But we did last week. It was great. So, it's gonna be real fun. Oh, I think there was another question about quarterly tax payments I didn't answer. I don't know where it is, but someone asked I know that taxes are delayed to July, but does that mean freelancing quarterly taxes are too? And guess what? Yes! It's July 15th for everyone. So if you were supposed to owe quarterly taxes that you would normally pay on April 15th for the first quarter, that has also been delayed to July 15th along with the tax deadlines. However, if you haven't filed in the past 2 years for your taxes, then you should, because otherwise you won't get the $1,200 and they're not going to garnish it. If you're afraid of filing, but you're not going to get that $1,200, but you're afraid because of how much you owe, you should talk to a tax preparer, because they're pretty much will give you a payment. I mean, the IRS will give you a payment plan no matter what, but they're going to give you a great one right now. And the interest rate is going to be pretty much zero. So, hey, check it out. Multiple tax preparers. Well, thank you all for joining. I'm going to end on some, I mean, this was actually less depressing than last time. I feel like we were so chill last time, and now it's been just like, I have notes, by the way. This was complicated, although I ended up remembering vast majority of it. Veterans and people getting Social Security payments. Oh, Americans living abroad, as long as you have a Social Security number and filed a tax return, you will get the $1,200. I'm really glad this was helpful for people. I'm sorry that I just talked nonstop. Usually there's a little more give and take. There's a lot of information to get through. We are going to have, there were some questions I didn't get to. I said I was going to try to answer all of the questions, but frankly, I got so many questions. Oh, student loans. I didn't even cover student loans. Do people want to know about student loans, or do they want to go back to their day and not learning about this? Because student loans changed. But I will have an episode out on it, so if you'd rather listen to it in an episode. But I can answer any questions people have about the student loan stuff right now. Oh, Joe says that's good because almost all of the backpackers from various countries chose to stay here when we shut the borders. Yeah, I actually heard that just this morning that special flights are being chartered to get foreigners out of Saudi Arabia. So the kingdom is like chartered special flights just to like get foreigners out. So yeah, it'll be interesting. Okay. All right. It's like so many. I like this just general what's happening with student loans and COVID-19. Okay. There's a lot going on, but pretty much 90% of federally held loans, which means not private loans, but federally held loans, have already been they have already been made so that essentially it's been suspended, and there's no interest right now through July. It's actually now been, no interest has been roughly extended till the end of the year. And this is automatic. I don't know if you have American student loans, you know that almost nothing is automatic. You almost always have to call your servicers. The only thing automatic is that eventually they'll find you. But they are, you will have to tell them if you want to stop making a payment, because auto payments, if you have auto payments set up, it may keep making payments, but your payments will now owe zero, and you will not accrue interest during this next period. So if you do keep making a payment, it will go 100% to principal. The other thing is, even if your now new expected payment is $0 because you turned off auto payment, and they've suspended payments now for the next 6 months, that quarter of that month of payment will still count towards your 120 payments for public student loan forgiveness, and it will count towards the 8 or 9 months that a lot of people need for student loan rehabilitation. So usually you have to make an on-time payment each month for 7 or 8 months, depending on the program that you're in, to rehabilitate a student loan. And those payments, even if they are $0, will still count. Also, those payments will count as payments on your credit score as well. So you will continue to accrue good history on your credit score. There is no change currently for the student loan interest deduction. As far as I have seen, once again, I should emphasize the bill is like this big, so no one has read all of it. I saw that if you can't pay your loans and you're in PSLF, you will still get credit for payments. Yes. Confirm or deny. I already did that. And there is no upper limit on income or anything like this. I know for a lot of student loan stuff like IBR and ICR, The other thing I will tell you is that every servicer is approaching this differently. This is for any federal loans, which are usually serviced by a handful of these. And I don't know if you've experienced this before, but student loan servicers make mistakes all the freaking time. So the best advice that we are having is at the end of this grace period that you check back in. You may, if you've had a loss in income, you may qualify for IBR or ICR that you haven't previously before. That's income-based repayment or income contingent repayment. And you might have to re-enroll in order to get IBR or ICR. They're supposed to reach out to you, but like they're dumb. So part of the budget says I am canceling my auto payment now. But my servicer already made mine 0. That's awesome. So it's one of those things where every servicer is going to handle it different. They've been told to make everybody 0. Servicers are trash, and so they wouldn't necessarily do that. I will also say that even if you if you are in the situation where you're like, crap, I don't have these federal loans. Also, if you have a Perkins loan, because Perkins loans have this like specific cancellation policy and everything, and Perkins loans are special. They're federal loans, but they're very special in a bunch of ways, which is why I tell you to almost never consolidate your Perkins loans into other loans, because you will make yourself ineligible for a ton of programs. Perkins loans will not qualify for this. 90% of federally backed loans will immediately qualify for this $0 payment situation. If you are someone who's graduating in June and you normally would get a grace period of 6 months, you will need to enroll in your, usually you have to enroll shortly before graduation or right after graduation with your servicer, but they give you 6 months before you have to start making payments. Instead, what you want to do is actually make it so that you start making payments of $0, because that will count towards your payments. Or if you have the income, if you're lucky enough to have the income when you graduate, then you should actually start making payments, because all those payments will go to principal rather than interest, because there's no interest immediately. That's cool. Portland college students were stuck in Morocco for a while, but might still be okay. Oh, that's talking about things. Damn, regarding the Perkins. So these are direct federal loans. So if you are in the situation with private loans, or if you have Perkins, reach out to your servicers, because most servicers are doing something. The student loan stack of this bill, because guess what? We're broken. The student loan stack of this bill is in fact such a mess that and so big that I haven't wrapped my head around all of it. And also servicers gonna be servicers, and they're gonna be, especially for private loans. But yes, if you have any direct loans, this is gonna be true. It's like awesome. Also, you will be able to do, I don't know what's happening with student interest deduction. I will have to make sure on that. As far as I know, there's no changes to it. But you can still enroll in this program, even if your student loans are paid for by your employer. A lot of people are going to have that benefit cut, even if they previously had it, because employers are looking for ways to cut things right now. But if it has, as far as benefits for people, this actually was a pretty good bill. Most domestic and domestic workers as well, if they're not considered, there's a lot in there. Let's all just take a deep breath. I think what this bill is meant to tell you is we're all gonna be okay. I hope. All right, well, stay hydrated, wash your hands, eat a donut if you have access to one, pet a cat if you have access to one, and stay safe, stay healthy. See you all later.
Yeah.